we tend to have some type of contaminating event that happens usually at the beginning of our story. And the way that I interpret that contaminating event is some type of highly emotional, usually traumatic experience that kind of taints what the rest of the story actually looks like for us. I mean, kind of as PTSD does, is, kind of goes in there and rewires some of the neural pathways, and it's is harmful. Okay, but when we're at a place of trying to dig into some of this, I guess, shadow work, I really started to get introduced to it, or introduced to it when I started to work through some of that, like, contaminating things that were happening in my story. So going back to some of the childhood stuff and figuring out, okay, how am I still living through the same experience over and over again, which is kind of one of the things that that contaminating event does. And how the process of resentment works is that if we don't go back and look at life in retrospect and dig into some of those things, they can continue to influence how we show up in our life, which is problematic, because it's almost like, I think about it as like Groundhog's Day. It's like we're living the same day over and over again. We're having the same experiences, we're having the same preconditioned responses to things, and we're not necessarily seeing life the way that it is. We're almost seeing life the way that it actually was at some point. At least that was my experience with it. And when I was able to go back to, I guess, that like contaminating event, or there was a few, and there's usually a few of them in everyone's life, and I was able to untether some of that stuff, that's where I was able to move from a place of victimhood to a place of being kind of a survivor, which is another one of the things that they talk about in the video, which is where, as opposed to having like this contaminating event, it's almost like this redemptive story.
Mm-hmm. That's it. That's totally it. And so it's the ability to go back and see it for what it is, exactly what it is, not the narrative that I put around it. So I can look back at my past. I did the same work where I'm going back, looking at all those contaminating events, quotes, and it's given you the ability to reframe it, to see it for exactly what it is. But then with that, it's the ability then to reframe the contamination story into the redemptive story moving forward, is to understand the patterns of my reaction, my response. And so so now I'm looking at almost a two-part thing as we go back and look at it. This is exactly what happened. Now I can start to look at the characters involved in all of that so-called damage. And then I can start to see it for exactly what it is. But now I'm looking at myself, and I'm looking at my response and how those patterns of the response is now what shaped me moving forward. Rather, I should say it really shaped and spoke to my nervous system of what and helped determine the world that I was shaping, trying to move forward and grow up. Right? If that makes any sense. So it's the ability to go back, reframe, and look at it exactly as it is, without the emotional charge. And you use that word untethered. So by becoming untethered, it's to see it for what it was, which was not as bad as I thought it was.